Ever feel like technology is taking over your kids' lives? Smartphones, iPads, computers, and other digital devices can leave parents wishing for the good old days when everyone wasn't so well connected. Maybe you're longing for less Facebook and more FaceTime. The new book, Screenwise, Helping Kids Thrive and Survive in Their Digital World, offers practical advice on how parents can guide their children through the changing media landscape. And joining us is the Chicago author of Screenwise, Devorah Heitner. Ms. Heitner is a media historian and founder and director of Raising Digital Natives. That's a resource for parents and schools looking for advice on helping children thrive in the digital world. Welcome to Chicago Tonight.
Thank you.
First of all, according to your book, parents tend to corner you with questions and concerns. Give me an example of the kinds of questions you get from parents.
Parents are very concerned about when to get kids devices, or that they've made some horrible mistake and wrecked their kids by getting them a device. Parents are worried about what their kids might see on the internet, which of course isn't always a kid-friendly place to be. Parents want to get advice on time. How much time should my child be playing Minecraft? How much time should my child be texting? So these are some of the things that parents ask most frequently.
In fact, in your book, you have tips for tech-positive parents, and they include, number one, creating unplugged spaces and boundaries for tech time, realize your connectivity sets the tone for the family, model civility online and offline, ask permission before posting pictures of your own children. We'll get to that. And using technology to make a positive impact. And let's talk about the first one, limiting screen time. Is there a rule of thumb?
Well, creating unplugged time is both important in your schedule, like thinking about when during the week do you want your family to be unplugged? Do you want to have a special time, a special time that you look forward to, where maybe you do other things? And then it's also good to think about your day-to-day routines. Do you really want kids in the back seat, for example, playing games online or using their phones, or do you want to have them talk to you or talk to one another? So just thinking about those kinds of spaces and making plans to use screen time intentionally. So I wouldn't get on an airplane with my child without making a plan that included some screen time, but I don't want to just fall into habits. I want to be making that time intentional and positive and exciting.
So are you saying you've got to be flexible about it, or as I say, are there rules of thumbs in terms of dinner?
Yeah, many of us think that unplugged meal times are a good idea, and if I show up to meal times with my phone, I'll be reprimanded by my child because he's not allowed to do it. So it's a good thing for kids to also be able to call their parents out gently and respectfully on their screen time. So meal times, a lot of parents are limiting children's access to connected devices in the bedroom as well. So when we think about unplugged times, we can also think about unplugged spaces. For an elementary schooler, a middle schooler, to have an internet-enabled device in their bedroom may be a lot of access to the world, and that could distract kids from things they need to be doing, homework, sleep.
One of the things you also mentioned is that it's a good idea to ask permission before posting pictures of your own children.
Yes.
And why is that? Explain that.
Well, we want to create that boundary, and obviously we're not talking about babies and toddlers. We need to use our best judgment there. But as kids get older and start to understand the concept of sharing a photo, so anywhere from 5 to 9 years old, having that conversation about, hey, is this okay if I share it with other people? And they might get curious. They might say, well, Mom, who's on your Facebook? Or Dad, who's on your Instagram? And then you can have that conversation about, well, this is an audience of people that I know. It includes maybe the family and some friends. And they may have more questions, and that gives them a sense of what is a social network, which is something we want them to understand ideally before they're part of one. So before our child is on Instagram or Snapchat, we want them to understand the idea of having a public that's slightly larger. And then it also gives them practice saying no. So if I ask a child for permission before sharing his or her picture, I'm giving them the authority to say no, which we want them to have before all their friends are taking pictures of one another. We want our child to know that they should ask, that that's good etiquette, and we want them to know that they can say no when their friends are taking their picture. And it's very empowering for kids.
Yeah, I can say, and it can really save problems down the road.
Absolutely. It's good practice. You're not going to do anything intentional to embarrass your child, but it's still really good boundaries.
Back to the issue of limiting screen time. Are there different concerns for really young children who are 3 or 4 years old as opposed to children who are, say, in middle school?
Absolutely. Kids will use search in different ways, and searches searches like Google can be inappropriate in different ways for different kids. Pre-literate kids will use YouTube and will use images to decide where they're going to move around in the space. And of course, the YouTube algorithm has some mysteries to it. And sometimes your child might be happily looking at trucks or pandas, and then something, a suggested other video might have content you don't want your 4-year-old to see, which is why I would suggest with young children, we're with them when they're on the internet. We need to be present physically, because there's nobody with the discernment that we have. There's no app that can keep your kid in appropriate territory, especially at that kind of young age, because they may not even know when they've seen something that they could find traumatic. So we want to be with them. Little kids do not need unsupervised internet time. It's not like, they're going to lose their jobs if they can't Google it.
Question. There's research, isn't there, to suggest that there is an addictive quality to it that's been observed? I mean, in terms of how your brain, a young brain particularly, can literally become addicted to screen time?
There's a lot of debate about that, and some research suggests for a very small number of people. But the term addiction is used by a lot of parents incorrectly. But I really have a lot of empathy for parents dealing with the frustration of trying to pry a child away from a game like Minecraft that's quite immersive, or even from texting or sharing on social media. But most of those kids wouldn't truly meet our definition of addiction. If we sent them to summer camp, they would calm down quite quickly. They wouldn't be on the floor writhing in pain, The kid who would go to summer camp and be unplugged, who actually couldn't function and would fall apart, that might meet the threshold. But
so we're using the term a little loosely.
Exactly. I wouldn't say I'm addicted to cookies, but if you have them in the house, I might eat too many. But that's not a true addiction, because if they're not in the house, I'm not going into withdrawal.
When is it appropriate? And this is one of the questions you say people ask you all the time. When is it appropriate for a child to get a smartphone?
When they have some discernment, when you think they can be on their own. If your child's not old enough to walk around the city alone or be home alone, they may not be old enough for having a connected device. A child who has some discernment can show you someone who's using social media in a smart way that reflects positively on them, and they can show you someone who's using social media, say, in a negative way. They'll have ideas if you say to them, wow, you might be interested in group texting with all your friends now that you're getting a phone. What will you do if someone says something unkind or mean? And they'll have good ideas. If they don't have good ideas, then I would keep talking with them and work on building some of those social competencies, building their conflict resolution skills before they get into smartphone territory. Because a smartphone is a lot of access to incoming information, and it's also possible to produce a lot of you can make a video and share it very quickly, and not every kid is ready for that.
We're almost out of time, but this is really something important that I found in your book, and that is the feedback that you receive from children about their concerns. Quickly, what are they concerned about?
They're concerned about feeling like they have to be always available to their friends, and they're also finding that their parents are often on their phones, and so they find that it's hard to access the adults in their lives sometimes, because the 21st century workplace can reach parents at all times. So their parents' device use concerns them, and that feeling that peers need to be able to access them at all times. They need to know that it's okay to not be available to text at every moment of the day.
Devorah Heitner, thank you so much. This is, I'm sure a lot of parents will listen to this with great interest.
Thank you.
Grandparents, too. Again, the book is Screenwise, Helping Kids Thrive and Survive in Their Digital World. You can read an excerpt on our website.